Hey, Alter Everything listeners. We know that turning raw data into insights can be time consuming and challenging. But we've got good news for you. Alteryx can transform your analytics. Alteryx drives positive business outcomes by enabling fast, data driven decisions. And you can try out our products today. Start your 30-day free trial of Alteryx Desktop or the Analytics Cloud platform at alteryx.com/altereverything. Welcome to Alter Everything, a podcast about data science and analytics culture. As we approach Halloween, we're excited to bring you an episode on that theme. Join my colleague Joe Marco and I as we explore some spooky topics like generative AI hallucinations, model collapse, and AI content generation. Joe will also provide some valuable insights about how he helps customers work through AI fears and challenges. Let's get started. Hey, Joe, it's great to have you on our podcast today.
Hey, Megan. Thanks for having me, especially around the Halloween time, one of my favorite holidays. So I'm excited.
Yeah, of course. So I was hoping you could give a quick introduction to yourself for our listeners.
Yeah, sure. So Joe Marco here. I am a senior sales engineer out of the globals area. So I deal with some of our biggest accounts here at Alteryx in supporting a lot of the adoption strategies and expansion platform opportunities. I've been with Alteryx coming up on 2 years, which is crazy to think that time flies. Feels like yesterday. I was coming on board and meeting a lot of the team. Prior to Alteryx, I spent a little over 9 years in the healthcare space with Johnson and Johnson. So I had an opportunity to do a lot of different data and analytics things. Led me down the route of data science, machine learning, and AI. And yeah, the Alteryx journey has been awesome. I was a long time user before I came. I always tell people I loved it so much I came to work here. So
Great. Well, I'm happy to have you here today. As you alluded to earlier, this episode is Halloween themed. So, in the spirit of Halloween, I wanted to talk about some spooky concepts in AI. So, we've got a lot here to chat about. The first thing that came to mind when I was thinking about this was generative AI hallucinations. There's been a lot of talk about generative AI. Obviously, everybody's talking about it, but the concept of hallucinations sounds very spooky and intriguing to me. So, curious what you've heard about it, what you think about that topic.
yeah, I mean, when I hear the word hallucinations, there's an immediate thought of like, that's scary. Like how can AI do what it can do, right? So I think a lot of what I've noticed is there's a little bit of like trust and hesitancy in AI. It can do some pretty awesome things, but how do we know that we can trust it? So a lot of what I've seen in my role and just outside is number one, a lack of exposure to like how much AI is already integrated into our day to day. But the tricky thing is like, how do you know you can trust it? How do you know that AI is not giving you or blindly leading you into a path that isn't comfortable for you? And it'll be interesting to see how that continues to evolve. There's ethical conversations, there's security conversations are usually at the forefront. But for us, those hallucinations usually just tie down to a how do I know I can trust this? And what does the future look like here for AI?
Yeah, definitely. When it's common or when it happens, when generative AI hallucinates or makes up things basically and sounds confident, that can really cause you to question the other results you've gotten from it. If it can sound so confident and so authoritative on this subject, what does it really mean for the other outputs that this model has produced? And yeah, when I was thinking about Halloween, I thought of it as a comparison to ghosts. It's like a ghost of intelligence. It looks like it's putting out something really smart. And then the second you dive a little bit into it, there's really nothing there. So I think it's really interesting.
There's some analogies there too to like Frankenstein and like piecemealing together all of these different things. When you think about like machine learning and AI too, building predictive models and trying to work down the path of AI, specifically speaking, isn't difficult. The difficult part is evolving them, retraining, trusting, enabling, and then
Hmm.
eventually what you really want is to be able to say, I trust this AI, this ML, this capability with my business critical decision. That's where the hallucination risk comes into play. Is when can you trust it? And I
Yeah.
think we're seeing quite a few trends in that area where, at a certain point, a decision needs to be made. when do we know we can trust what AI is feeding out to us or machine learning, which is it's always a fun conversation, but a difficult one.
Definitely getting things into production is so much more than just the theory of, "Oh, look, I can make this model, can make this run." Well, getting into production for your business, that's a whole 'nother monster, a whole
Exactly.
'nother beast. And, yeah, another pitfall or another spooky concept that I found when researching for this episode, came across on LinkedIn, was this idea of model collapse. So, this is when AI models are trained on data generated by other AI models. So the
Yep.
output of one generative AI becomes the input of the other, and so on and so on. And it leads to model collapse and degenerative AI. So I found that super interesting. There's some interesting research we'll link in our show notes. But that also made me think of Frankenstein too. Like you're creating models based on synthetic outputs, basically, and it just devolves into this monster type situation.
I know, and it's funny we're sitting here talking about AI and machine learning is a monster that's growing and creating, but I think our organization is trying to help demystify the monster that is the advanced analytics world for the day-to-day users, meaning it doesn't need to be as intimidating or challenging. However, as AI continues to get better and better, there is decisions that would need to be comfortably made at a certain point before you decide, okay, I trust this, right? You never want to
Mhm.
blindly trust something, but I think there's definitely something beautiful to be said around like advanced analytics and the capabilities that they can unlock. But
Yeah.
it's quite a scary process that a lot of organizations and a lot of customers we deal with on day to day is where do I start? And then eventually, as I get rolling, when can I make the decision and trust the decision to your point, will not collapse some of the things I'm trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and I wonder if you feel like transparency or understanding can help lead to that? Like, I know it can be hard to trust kind of a black box machine learning model, but are there ways that you see that you can open it up for people to inspire trust for them to use the model and so on?
Yeah, definitely. I think, and it takes me back to one of my first customer meetings that I had when I worked here at Alteryx, and I was walking somebody through like how to build their own first machine learning model. And the immediate questions that came out were, how am I going to decide that now I predicted this? I want to take an action. And what we realized through those conversations with this customer who's brand new to machine learning is it's not quite that simple. It's not black and white and it's not cut and dry that you build your model and you put it into production and then you just leave it and you come back when you need it and you revisit. There's an evolution to be had there. There's a monitoring. There's an evolution of those models as they go. So ChatGPT and OpenAI and some of these are super fun to play with, but would you ever want to put your proprietary data, out in the world? Probably
Yeah,
not. And I think that's where we're seeing a lot of the trends. There's an excitement, but it's scary. And I think it's our job in the world of software and education enablement to say it doesn't need to be as scary, but there is things you need to consider before you blindly trust AI with all of your sensitive inner workings of data.
definitely. Very well said. And one other thing that I thought was interesting about that specific model collapse scenario too was just it highlights some of the dangers of synthetic data and synthetic data basically generating your own data to use in your own models. It does have its uses, but it's not always cut and dry. It can be challenging to get that to work the way you want.
Yeah, and I think we've seen trends with this, right? You have these occasional occurrences, and we use business examples in a supply chain world where a distribution center goes down for a certain reason. Maybe it never had issues in the past. How do you account for that? And you start to get questions like, well, why can't the model figure that out? And it's like, well, it never happened before. So, and we'll start to see these scenario based modeling. And to your point, these synthetic simulations, I guess, is another way to phrase it. But there's always going to be things we can't account for going in that we think AI and ML will continue to get better at, and it will. But there's always going to be that need to evolve, iterate, and learn from what we see and make tweaks and changes along the way. And that's one of the biggest things I think that gets missed in translation when you start to
Mm.
to go out on this journey. And I go back years now where I'm like, yeah, build these models. It's great. And you're like, is the model actually good? No, let's add new data. And then let's maybe see what else we can pull in and evolve. And you make a decision, you monitor, you reevaluate, you evolve. The cycle in AI and ML, it's never static. It should always be continuously grown with the users and the experience in mind.
And on that topic of evolving, we were also talking about AI generated video and imagery. So, I guess shifting a bit away from our talk of analytics in the industry or machine learning in the industry, but when we're looking at some of these new technologies that are coming out around AI generated video and imagery, I feel like that also ties into our whole spooky machine learning theme here today. And yeah, curious if you've seen any interesting examples of that or what you think about those kinds of technologies.
There is some really creepy, like, marketing video generated, I'll call it, campaigns out there. And I know when we were talking about this podcast, the pizza one came up. There's this generated marketing video that was intended to be like, I think it was a pizza sale, like the generated imagery of the people, them eating the pizza, like it looked like a horror movie. It honestly looked extremely scary. That looks like something we've seen out of a Halloween movie. But to AI, it's yeah, this is like a pizza campaign with people that are excited about. So I highly recommend people check out. I think you probably just search pizza AI ad on YouTube. It's hard to get across how creepy that was through a podcast. There's a lot of logo like generate AI logo generator like brand marketers out there that are starting to say, give us some terms, give us, it could be company logos, product logos, services, give us some context and we'll create imagery for you, or we'll try to chain together a series of video demonstrations. And that's super powerful, but sometimes when you see what comes out at the other end, it's scary.
It's a
But
mixed
that comes
bag sometimes.
exactly, exactly. But yeah, that's one area that I always think about when I think about AI, and that pizza video sticks with me sometimes.
Keeps you up at night.
Exactly, exactly.
Well, I mean, it does tie back in with what you were saying about evolving and iterating and how that's needed in the machine learning used in business, but there's definitely a lot of iterating when it comes to things like that as well, the AI generated video and imagery. Like it feels some of it feels a little far away from being realistic now, but I think that as it continues to evolve and the technology continues to get better, I don't know the timeline, but it definitely could get better and better, which be exciting, could be scary depending maybe on the work you're doing and the field you're in. But I think as a technology that can assist in your work, whether it's yeah, generate clips of videos or images or whatever to help you with your work, that piece of it can be exciting.
But I also personally just find that extremely fascinating on how it generates what it does, and I question myself, like, "Why is it doing that?" Right? And how did it
Right.
pick this part up, or why did it pick these colors and this sequence? It's really interesting.
As humans, we sometimes imbue our humanity or we think that AI is going to think like us or we assume, oh, this is logical. The model will do this.
Mhm.
But depending on how it works, it might think completely different. It might have learned to think completely differently. It makes me think of an example. I can't remember like the exact animals, but it was like an image classification algorithm where it was correctly classifying, let's say, pandas versus cats or something really correctly. But then they took out the background and it couldn't do it. And it realized it was looking at, oh, is it surrounded by bamboo or by grass or in a house
Yeah.
or whatever? So it's like you think that, oh, it's classifying, it's thinking, it's identifying this panda versus this cat, when really it's taking a completely different logic route that worked in that scenario, but it's not understanding like you assumed it was. So I think that's interesting.
And maybe it was a mixture of things it was trained on, and it comes back to that evolution, right? And the Frankenstein process where it's many trial and error points and many different components to AI and ML at the end of the day. But the real question we're asking is how can we weave it into our day to day to help benefit and take advantage of it while also being considerate of not blindly trusting it. I think you used that term earlier, which is a great one. that it's up to each individual and it's up to each organization. And what I'm super excited about is what are the other AI applicable use cases that haven't really been explored yet or are continuing to evolve that can look at helping society? And it's going to be fascinating. And I think it already is. And a lot of what we see right now is, I'm sure, just scratching the surface of what will feel normal years from now, which will be super exciting to see.
Mhm. And that's a great segue into what I wanted to chat about next. I mean, now that we've covered some of these scary topics or spooky, creepy instances or some of the pitfalls, I'm curious to hear what are some positive instances you've heard of people using AI or generative AI?
Yeah, there's a lot of great ones. I think the one that's most relatable, at least short term to everyone, at least most folks, is like ChatGPT, right? Like the ability
Mhm.
to interface with something that can guide you with content that it's been trained on, tremendous amounts of data. You almost treat it like a chatbot, but it's not a chatbot, right? And I think there's a fascinating world here where prompt engineering and understanding how to interface and interact with AI
Mhm.
based technologies becomes ever more important. I'm a big sports and analytics guy, and they use the term using analytics to make the decision. So something like going for it on fourth down or deciding if you should throw a ball or a strike to somebody based off analytics. And my dad, he's old school. He's like, just go with the hot hand, like, stick with what you know. And we're starting to see in the sports world, like, could we start to see penetration of AI where it's guiding different teams and players and decision making? And I think we're already, in my opinion, we're seeing it a bit. You start to see a few of the integrations, when we're watching sports, like the analytics say there's like a 67% chance that this team wins because of the context of the setting. And when we talk about looking at what we know based off history and we start to think ahead of, well, what play should I call? What person should I start in this role? The sports and analytics world is one that I'm extremely fascinated to see how AI plays a role. The other ones that aren't, entertainment wise, I mentioned at the top, I'm from a healthcare supply chain background.
Mhm.
So I think the pharmaceutical industry, gene researching, the ability to look at gene expression and different therapies that could be applied. I think it's going to be super exciting to figure out and see how AI plays a role in day to day health and longevity, which I'm sure is still, to our earlier point, it's scary because those decisions they're life and death a lot of
Mm.
times, right? And they're trying to ensure that we're continuing to drive a healthy society. How does AI play a role? And that's what I'm most excited for seeing. But I know there's a lot between now and then of those decisions to be made. Those are the two that came to mind.
Yeah, something that I've been reading about a bit and seen is generative AI being used in genetics research. So, in the healthcare field, like the way that it can process so much data and predict gene expression, I saw that they're using for it. I think that's really cool too. The research capabilities of the technology that you could develop new types of therapies or even new pharmaceuticals. I saw something about that. We're not able to make these prediction. I think from my understanding, it's just so much data and so many possibilities, but with AI, they can predict protein folding or other things for gene research that could really accelerate helping more people with these types of like therapies. So I thought that was really cool as well. I'm excited about that.
I think it'll be cool to see how AI plays a role in helping not only the marketing and the content side there, but the actual product creation. And I think when we use the word product, we're talking about just the day-to-day goods that we buy, all the way through to the life-saving medicines, therapies, decisions that get made. But there's always coming back to our opener there. It's an evolving process that takes time to trust, and there is a lot of work to be done between now and then, but it is pretty fascinating for sure.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, what do you think? AI, spooky or not? How do you feel?
I'm gonna stick with the seasonal trend, spooky, for
Okay.
sure. But I'm a sucker for something that is unknown, right? Or mysterious. I guess maybe mysterious is a better word
Yeah.
than spooky. So we can say I'm viewing it that way. But I think the future is extremely fascinating with AI and ML. I think everyone has a right and should be as excited as they are. But there is skepticism we need to take into. And it's important for us as Alteryx, a data and analytics company, how do we help enrich that messaging with our consumers around how to handle data, right? Because when we talk about these models, these vendors, there's tremendous amount of data behind the scenes. And I think it's starting to show, more importantly, that to be able to properly interact and trust, you got to know what your data is. You have to be able to know how to navigate it. You have to know whether or not you trust your data before you trust the AI generated thing. So we'll go with mysterious. Unless you watch that pizza video, then you're definitely going to be spooked. But love it.
Yeah, watch at your own risk. We'll put it
Yeah,
in the show
we'll have
notes.
to leave it in the we'll leave it in the description and just put a
Yeah.
big be careful before you watch this, or you might be scared.
Yeah, but I love that. I think mysterious, complicated, those are good words to describe it, but I think at the end of the day when you're talking about the business implementation, it really does come down to the data you put in and the ways that you deploy it. It takes a little bit of the spookiness out of it because it's a little more business decisions that you have to make and the whole deployment of it and everything. There's a lot that goes into it. So it's complicated.
I think it's just understanding too that what we will do over the coming years, like how do we break those barriers down to help to look at AI as a means to support us, break down that mysterious barrier,
Mhm.
and realizing it can be scary, but it can also be friendly, and it can help us with many things all the way through to some of the more exciting ones we talked about today.
I love that. Yeah. Thanks, Joe, for joining me today on the podcast. This has been a really fun conversation.
No problem. I think the future's bright, but we as humans, we are always skeptical, but it's important to think about how this can apply to our day-to-day and ultimately those larger decisions that we make organizationally.
Thanks, Joe. We'll see you around.
No problem. Thanks, Megan. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. To check out topics mentioned in this episode, head over to our show notes on community.alteryx.com/podcast. And if you liked today's episode, leave us a review. Enjoy Halloween and stay safe.